Welcome to another edition of COPE, Community's Own and Personal Elevation. We come to you once again from our home location, the Hard Rock Cafe, Freeport, Montego Bay. Lovely, lovely place. Fabulous bar, fine food, ambience to die for. It's all about the indoor element, the outdoor with pool and beach. You can't want it any better, and it's just really fantastic. And it's something that makes you forget at times about the Jamaica that truly exists, real Jamaica. Because Jamaica is a fantasy land. Yes, a place of fantasy, where reality and fantasy coexist. You want to know how that really plays out? Spend a week or a weekend in a hotel, one of our fabulous 5-star hotels, and you'll get an understanding of what it is that I'm talking about. While you're there, you're submerged in an element. And I call it unreality. Because you're there for the weekend. And you don't need to go anywhere. Everything is there. It's just a fantastic fantasy of a place. That really doesn't have much to do with reality. You eat, you drink, you sleep, you're entertained, you're regaled, you're taken care of in every single way. And you do this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the reality sets in. Monday, you leave the property and you're back into reality. Honking horns, dirty streets, you name it. Horrible social behavior, impolite people, violence at a moment's notice. Just telling somebody to excuse you is enough to create violent confrontation. Social decay, social disorder, everything. Just general madness that sets in. And there's no reason why the fantasy couldn't become our reality, Jamaica is a fantastic place of richness. Fabulous richness in terms of, oh God, it's a blessed land. It's a God-blessed land. It's the closest thing to what I read about the Garden of Eden. Place where you can go and pick fruits and eat. Places where you can eat food that don't belong to anyone without you even stealing it. And if it belongs to somebody, we have such kind-hearted people at times that they will give you. You just need to ask. And if somebody even see the corner of your mouth look white, you needn't even ask. They will give it to you. Jamaica is a fantastic place. What has been neglected in all of what Jamaica has become now, and what is the terrible condition of my island in the sun, is the neglect of the people. There isn't any investment, whole-scale investment, unmitigated investment in the development of Jamaicans. And when I talk about Jamaicans, there are a set of Jamaicans who are set already. So I need not worry about them. The majority people I'm talking about, who from the days of slavery up until this point has been neglected and ignored. And everyone comes and pretend that they're concerned about the welfare of the masses. Well, I'm telling you, we aren't asses. We understand clearly and we see it that nothing no goes up. Nothing no goes up. And I am tired of talking about it and pointing to people who will look. And I can tell you, as I sit right here, there's only one prime minister we have had who have taken up the battle of the masses. And his name was Michael Manley. And I say this without fear of contradiction. And I say this fearlessly. I say it with knowledge that is as clear to me as a bright sunny day. I don't know what eyes other people are looking at. I don't need to be in an orange shirt. I don't need to be in a green shirt. I don't need to be in a blue shirt to understand this clearly. That the sacrifices that he made was true sacrifice and his service to the people was that of a true servant as prime minister. And it brooks no argument. Was he a perfect being? No. Certainly he wasn't. Was he a perfect man? No. Was he a perfect prime minister? No. Did he make mistakes? Of course he would have made mistakes. But when we look at the tenure of Michael Manley, it cannot be looked at in absence of what took place with the sabotage by various elements of his government. The USA was part of it. The JLP was part of it. The robber barons of Jamaica are part of it. And the children of the slave owners were part of it. That group got together and let it be known that that propaganda machine had to go to work to destabilize and to overturn and derail that train that was carrying what was to rescue the children of the slaves. And I'm telling you, there's nothing that could rescue the masses, black people, like education. When he stood up and announced in 1972, 73, that from primary all the way through university, education would be free and available to those who would avail themselves and have the aptitude to deal with it. The masses needed nothing else. You can invest in anything that you want, but invest in concrete, in cars, in telephony, in telecommunications, whatever. It will not work if you do not invest into making better people, better citizens. It cannot work. Nothing will work. And it was meant not to work, because you cannot develop a country without developing the people. No matter what you invest in infrastructure and this and that, it is not going to happen. You invest in a people and the people will develop the country. You try to develop a country without developing the people. And I'll give you a simple example that I've said to someone. And, you know, it's a little bit shaky, but here it is. If you build the finest house and present it to someone who is not au fait with certain things and give them a washing machine, they very well may think that that washing machine is a toilet and use it as such. You have to develop people. And all the pretenders that we have out there for prime minister and the various roles, you must invest in the development of the people. In driving home yesterday, I saw a spectacle that took place in Parliament. And I don't have to make up any noise, because there are parliaments where people come to fisticuffs. But you know what they come to fisticuffs about? A parliamentarian is fighting for his constituency. In Jamaica, parliamentarians do not fight for their constituency. They join alliance with the various political parties, and whatever is said, well, everybody sing the same song. So if something is being done to hurt the constituency of a particular MP, you better toe the line if the general consensus within the party is to support whatever that idea is. It doesn't really happen that way in many ideas. And I'm telling you, what happened in the parliament was a disgrace. What we need are some quality politicians, quality people of class and good character to help to develop this nation. We cannot continue to take the riffraff them and send them to parliament to go full them pocket with money, poor people money, taxpayers money. We need a new day. And that is all that I have to say on that. Before I introduce my next guest, I won't even segue into another thing. I'm going to take the opportunity to welcome today my guest, Mr. Lloyd B Smith, a man I'm proud to call the governor. Welcome to Cope, sir.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you.
How are you today?
I am reasonably well.
You're reasonably well. You see me, I'm a little soapbox. And sometimes we have to talk about these things. There's a deep love that I have for my country. Deep love. And sometimes I have to question whether or not my country love me back. As a child of slaves, I have to wonder how much my country truly loves me. Because the issue is not about you loving your country. You know? Your country must love you too. John F. Kennedy was, and a lot of Jamaicans like to quote this when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
But John F. Kennedy was speaking as most Jamaicans are unable to speak. He knew very well that what his country can do for him was already established. As a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, America was set to ensure that his plate would be all right. And if they need to take off something off of your plate somewhere else and put on his plate, it would be done. Because America don't have to say America first to be America first. You know. It has always been their mantra, America first. So, you know, we struggle with that. Where we are today, this is part 2 of a discussion that we've been having. And I want to talk to you even more now about the state of Montego Bay and the state of Jamaica in the context of even the monologue that I just finished. What is happening with our political directorate and why it is that we cannot get true representation from our politics? Why is it that an MP from Northwest St. James or Central St. James don't go to Parliament, as an example, and truly represent the needs of the people in those constituencies?
It goes back to the structure of our parliamentary democracy, which, as you know, is based on the Westminster model. And we have taken it to the vulgar extreme whereby we have a bipartisan network. We have 2 parties that are seen as tribes, and as was stated once, that spend most of their time fighting over the scarce benefits and spoils. And so, in that context, a parliamentarian, when he's elected, he's not elected on the basis of his going into Parliament to represent his constituency. He's elected on the basis to represent his party. So when he goes to Parliament, even if he has certain burning issues that relate to his constituency, and if those issues cannot be addressed, for example, let's say his party is in power, and the issues are of such that they would embarrass the party in power, he would be foolish to go into Parliament and raise them because he's going to be seen as fighting against his own party. So we need to change the structure of representation. When Michael Manley, and I'm glad you had mentioned his name earlier, because not only did he set out to liberate the masses, but he also had set out to rearrange how politicians ought to function, which is why the whole business of constitutional reform had come to the fore in the 70s and quickly died out, unfortunately. Interestingly, Bruce Golding, when he formed the National Democratic Movement, brought forward a number of what I would call pertinent issues, such as the separation of powers.
Yeah.
Because ingrained in that, you would have you separate what you call the executive from the judiciary and from the politics.
Yeah.
So that a parliamentarian would genuinely be representing his constituency, right? So that when he goes to Parliament and he gets up to speak, he doesn't say he's speaking, although he doesn't openly say it, but by his posture and by whatever he says, you can gather that he's either a Labourite
Yes.
or a Congress.
Yeah.
Rather than demand that we, in a particular constituency, put there to represent our interests.
And represent all the people, whether they're Labourite,
Exactly.
comrades, PNP, whatever.
Absolutely. But that is not happening. That is not happening. And so what you have is, when I remember, for example, when I was a member of Parliament for St. James Central, and I remember one day I went to my constituency office. It was usually on a Thursday that I go to my constituency office to meet with the constituents.
Yeah.
And while I was there, a little old lady, quite frail, came in and she needed help.
Yes.
And the moment the woman entered the room, I heard a lot of uproar. So I came out to investigate.
Yes.
What do you think happened? MP, no give her nothing. Mexico come out. You want to leave her right. So I said, I held, the poor little lady was trembling. Charlotte didn't look hungry.
Yeah.
And I said to them, no. I am member of parliament to represent everyone in the country,
Yes.
regardless of his or her
Political affiliation.
Of course, there was a silence, and then you hear the his teeth
And grumbling.
and the grumbling.
Aye.
And I saw it figure.
No, not so it figure.
And you mentioned earlier that the people are being kept down and are being, exploited and downtrodden.
Yeah.
But to some extent, the people themselves have allowed this to happen.
Yes.
And part of that problem is, it goes back to what you said earlier, education.
Yes.
Because this is where now, you mentioned Mike and Mandy, but I would want to go back to Father Manley, to
Yes.
Norman Manley. And we're not talking partisan politics here now.
We're just talking the facts.
Right. Because, take me for example. I came from a very, well, I wouldn't say very poor, but relatively
Yes.
poor family background. Run up and down in Railway Lane, Barnet Lane, those places. And if it were not for Norman Manley,
All right.
who introduced the common entrance,
All right.
which eventually became GSAT,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. I would perhaps have a machete somewhere in the bushes. I'd dig up 2 root
Cocoa or something. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
And that is not to look down on farming or
No.
anything like that.
And it was by virtue of my getting that
Yes.
education at Cornwall College,
Yes.
which has enabled me to be where I'm so you could be even calling me governor.
That's right. And at some point you couldn't even go near the gate at Cornwall College.
No, exactly. So
Rossi's was worse too.
exactly. So what we are basically saying, Warren, is that education is the liberating force.
Yes.
Because when you educate people, they become aware.
Yes.
And education in this context is not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic, as we always talk
Precisely.
about.
Precisely.
It is about our history, for
Yes.
example.
Right.
When we were going to school, part of the miseducation that we received was that we were made to believe that Great Britain
Yeah.
was the motherland.
Ah.
And we see what has happened now with the
Yes.
Windrush Saga.
Ah.
And we were made to believe that we were inferior.
All right.
And we were told in our classes,
Mhm.
especially in geography class, never
Mhm.
forget it, Africa the dark continent.
Imagine.
Now, when you tell a child in Jamaica who is black about Africa the dark continent, you are inculcating in his mind, in his psyche,
Yeah.
that him dark too.
Yes.
No, sir.
And anything that no good.
And so we have the inferiority complex. And so our education, therefore, cannot just be about, as I said, subjects.
Yeah.
It has to deal with our history,
Yeah.
who we are, where we came from, why we are here,
Yeah.
and where we want to go.
And the complete development of the man or woman to be a proper
Absolutely.
citizen,
A proper
contributing properly to your nation. And what we're having is a struggle with the type of people that have been underdeveloped. And the expectation is that they ought to be contributing to their society as responsible citizens. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Because they are not even aware of their own real situation. They are the first ones to turn against you. And we have seen how both parties manipulate the masses.
Yes.
And we have seen, labor rights. I mean, sometimes when I even nowadays look on Facebook and see how persons who support one party and the things they say about the other person, you wonder if we have 2 distinct Jamaica.
Yes. But we have about 5.
Yes.
Never mind 2. We have
Yes.
about 5 very clear, distinct Jamaican. And one of the problems that we have in this country, we deny things too much.
Yeah.
We do not face the reality of our own drunkenness or our alcoholic situation. And if, as alcoholics, you do not admit that you have a problem, there will be no solution.
But and you know what? You said, sorry to cut you, but you said something earlier about the fantasy.
Yes.
Because as I sit here at Hard Rock and I look outside, I see
yes.
the
Beauty.
aquamarine
Yes.
Caribbean Sea
Yes.
and the sun shining. That is also part of our problem in a real sense. And I tell you how, we're too damn comfortable. No, it's a fact.
Could very well be.
No, but look at it. If you look at the Industrial Revolution, for example, a lot of what happened in England, in Europe, and in North America ultimately, they had to deal with certain harsh realities. You know? One of them was cold
and hunger. Yes.
We don't have that problem as you say. We can go to go pick one breadfruit. So it's although it's a blessing, it's also a curse because we are so comfortable, right? That we don't see the need to revolt against the system. Somehow we are still able
to survive. And survival is what a lot of people care about more than anything else. Can I share with you an anecdote? A friend of mine. And it happens in so many instances where people wonder how a man employed in Jamaica just easily walk off his job and gone home to nothing.
Yes.
He's going to eat tomorrow, and he's going to drink, and he's going to survive. And at the end of the day, it's all about survival, and survival is what matters. My goodness, you hit the nail on the head. Our people are too comfortable. And comfort brings complacency.
And complacency leads to stagnation. And you reach a point where you can therefore be easily manipulated by those who are in a position to do so, which in our case are the politicians and those who control capital.
Oh my goodness. Talk to me about constitutional reform, because every government that comes into power, before they start the campaigning, they talk about constitutional reform. And soon as they sit into that chair in Jamaica House or lie down in the bed in Jamaica House, it's all forgotten.
Constitutional reform, the constitution that was written for us was written by politicians. So in essence, it was written to suit them. If you look, for example, at the American Constitution, it wasn't specifically written by politicians as such. It was written by a group of men who had come together out of the American Revolution and who saw the need for political independence. And so out of that, you have, for example, that tremendous statement, we believe that all men are created equal. We are not equal in Jamaica.
No.
And our constitution is only recently we're talking about the Charter of Rights. But the original constitution did not speak to the masses. It was speaking more to the plantocracy.
That's right.
And what do we mean by the plantocracy? When I was growing up, for example, you had the Bacra and the Great House. And those of us who were the remnants of slavery, we would still work for the Bacra. So you work in the cane field. My father was an overseer in Barnet cane piece. My mother would do a little cooking to feed the men. That's how she make a little money and this. You know what I'm saying? So it was that sort of thing that was there. So when those people sat and made up this so-called Jamaican Constitution, it didn't take into consideration our situation here today. It was to protect what was already there.
Isn't that unfortunate?
And part of that unfortunate scenario is that it still maintained the British monarchy as our sovereign lord. Right? When you go to parliament now, as a parliamentarian, or even to be sworn in as a justice of the peace, you are swearing allegiance to Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors.
That's right.
So even the little boy we born the other day took one of the the same is what 15 lines to this one for Prince Andrew the other day. We are swearing to him.
Of course.
We are swearing allegiance to him.
And we are comfortable with that.
To our people. We should be swearing allegiance to our people.
All right. We're comfortable. Part of the noise on social media recently is the visit of Andrew Holness and wife to Buckingham Palace and the great joy of meeting the Queen and the wonderful thing. And I'm saying, you know, the mother of oppression of black people you're going to meet. And that is something exciting to you or whatever in modern 2018 Jamaica.
And look at the irony. Even while our Prime Minister and his wife were meeting with the Queen, which is the symbol of our colonial oppression.
Yeah.
Jamaicans who, when they went to England in the 60s, on the Empire Windrush, that boat, they went there to build England because England was short of labor.
Yeah.
And they went there as British citizens.
Yes.
And yet
they were denied.
And do you realize, because when I was coming today, I heard a man on radio brought up a point which I didn't even think of myself.
Yes.
That all Jamaicans who were born before 1962 were in real terms British citizens.
British citizens. Not were. Are in real terms British citizens.
Yes.
The amount of things that they have stolen out of this little island, if they sent it back, we would be all right.
Yes. I mean, they saw where they said they're going to lend back Ethiopia some of the things that were taken.
Can you imagine?
Lend.
They are crazy.
Yeah, so the point is that constitutional reform has to happen. It is unfortunate that the current crop of politicians that we have still remain in a state of denial.
Yes.
We should not be still swearing allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II. We should not have a situation in which our final court of appeal
is in England.
Right? So the entire system of government that we have now, which is embedded in our constitution, needs to be gutted and changed.
All right.
But where is the leadership to take on that task?
I don't know where that's going to, in a very simple thing that did not escape my notice. I went into one of our public hospitals down Lucin, because we don't have any in Montego Bay anymore.
No, we don't have public.
So, when I went into the health department, there's the picture of the opposition leader, the Prime Minister, and in descending order, the Governor General, the picture of the Governor General higher, the Prime Minister a little lower, and a little lower, the leader of the opposition. And most Jamaicans who do not understand that is something highly significant.
Yes.
Highly significant that not even our Chief Minister or Prime Minister is the sovereign head and clear leader of our country.
No, it's not.
It's the Queen represented by the Governor General. And I'm going to take a short break and return in a matter of a few minutes where we'll delve into some of the other real issues them that we need to discuss concerning even the hospital, tourism, and the whole world. Do stay tuned. Cope will be right back.
Some businesses are the best kept secret in town, known only to a few friends and family. Advertising just can't be too much. Otherwise, Coca-Cola, KFC, and Burger King, all the big companies would cease to advertise. Instead, they advertise, and then advertise some more. Follow their good examples and let CTV introduce you to affordable, effective advertising. Don't delay. Call us today at 326-8747 or 396-6060. Advertise so they know. Advertise to grow.
Welcome back to Cope. We're talking to the Governor of Montego Bay, Lloyd B Smith. And we come to you again from Hard Rock Cafe. Cope, C-O-P-E, stands for Communities, Own and Personal Elevation. That is the meaning of the acronym. And it's not for one, it is highly relevant because through this program, we aim to educate, inform, and entertain to better help all of us to do exactly that. Cope with the living conditions, cope with situations. We'll provide you information that about things that you never knew before and all of that kind of stuff. This is a learning process for each and every single one of us. And sitting right beside me is indeed the governor of Montego Bay, who has a lot of information and insight that he can share through knowledge, experience, learning, the entire gamut. And it is indeed my pleasure to have him. Welcome back, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
From the break. We were talking a little bit earlier on, and just before we took the break, about the hospital situation. And we're going to touch on tourism too. We can't confine to any one thing. Sometimes we start off and say we'd like to stay with one particular topic. But the thing is so dynamic and what is happening that, boy, we just, the hospital, Cornwall Regional, where else in a country in the world is there a sick hospital? I understand people getting sick, but hospital being sick?
And it has been sick for a very long time.
Indeed.
The Cornwall Regional Hospital, for those who may not know, was officially opened on the 1st of April, interestingly, All Fools Day, in 1974.
Aye.
At the time, it was seen as the most modern and fully equipped hospital of its type, not only in Jamaica, but in the entire English-speaking Caribbean. Outside of the KPH and the University Hospitals in Kingston, this is the most outstanding piece of real estate when it comes to medical facilities in Jamaica. And as the name states, Cornwall, it serves an entire county, not just Montego Bay, not just Toulon, it serves the entire county of Cornwall. The reality is, there are a number of factors. One, and it goes back to politics again, because my research has shown, for example, that originally the idea of building this hospital was not for the West. It was to have gone to Maypen.
Oh.
But Herbie and Meyer, as you will recall, who was the
stalwart in Montego Bay,
and one of the influential members of the Jamaican Labour Party at the time, managed to persuade his party, his government, to bring the whole concept to the West, which is why some people have been clamoring that the hospital should be named after him. I don't support that because I think it is not in line with logical thinking. Anyway, that's another discussion for another time. So, the hospital was designed and built ultimately by persons who their concept of building such a hospital was for a European model. So how you know that in cold countries the building is so designed that in the winter it insulates in order to keep the heat. And in the summer you have the ventilation. So if you take a very close look at the Cornwall Regional Hospital's structure, architectural structure, and you look at any building, whether in New York, Massachusetts, and see if it's like metal, if it's under a similar type of structure. So it was totally inappropriately designed.
For our environment.
For our tropical climate.
Wow.
So that's number one. Number two, having created this monstrosity, which is what it has become, there was no maintenance plan put in place. So you put up this big hospital and you just start to make it operate until what happened?
Start running down.
Even we, when we start get old, we're going to start
Well,
pain
yeah,
and we
degrading
join
all about.
something,
Yeah.
which is what happened. So the ultimate reason for why the corner regional is where it is today is that there was no proper maintenance. And so if you look at it within that context, you cannot then just simply set out to blame any one
Political
political
party.
party. You have to blame
All of
of
them. Of
everyone.
course. Of course.
And you have to blame every single minister of health
Yes.
from independence until now.
Till now.
Right? Because at some point, each of them would have had responsibility.
Stability.
For
So that's
this.
putting the cards on
The
the
table.
table where that
Absolutely.
matter is concerned.
Yes.
Because it has become a political football.
Which is very unfortunate.
And passing from one
to
to the other.
Mm.
From one to the other. That is what called the hullabaloo
Yes.
in Parliament and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. That is
Exactly.
not what we're concerned about. We should be concerned about rescuing that situation here now. Just to touch on it, what would you suggest? I know you're not an expert in that area, but clearly we look on and we're knowledgeable people. We can tell some things and at a glance and say, well, you know, some recommendation needs to be followed. Either we repair or we tear it down and start somewhere new.
The ideal situation, right? The ideal situation would be to place a number of dynamites strategically in the building and demolish it. That's the ideal situation.
Yes.
The reality is, if you demolish the structure, where do you provide the services? Because remember, Cornwall Regional is the only medical facility in Western Jamaica that provides practically all the services.
Yes.
That is
type
why
A, only type A facility.
I give you an example. The other day there was a particular woman, she's now dead, very prominent Montagonian. She had an aneurysm on the brain and she was taken to one of the smaller hospitals.
Yes.
And the family was told, and this is a true story, the family was told, look, take her to Cornwall Regional.
Yes.
They said, no, not taking her up there. If she go, she go dead because they don't have the right facilities, the right this, the right that. She died.
Of course.
The facts are is that if she had gone to Cornwall Regional, she might have been alive today.
Yeah.
All the services are there. My doctors always tell me, Lloyd, if you really get sick, don't make them care go on one of these little smart places. Because sometimes you have to consult A, consult Y to decide what to treat. Right? So Cornwall Regional is essential in that regard. And going back to your original question then, which is where Tufton now got, and if you'll pardon the pun, into a tough spot. Because his thing was to close or not to close.
Yeah.
Dayton Campbell, the opposition spokesman, is saying, you should have closed.
Yeah.
Tufton is saying, but if I had closed, what would happen? People would die.
Yeah.
Because in the period that we have been discussing so far, when you're telling me that I should close, some 1,800 life-saving surgeries were performed.
Yeah.
If we had closed the facility, maybe those people would have died. So that is his argument. I don't know how valid it is, but that is what he said. None other than saying, no, you should just close down the entire thing and outsource the various services and facilities. It's an expensive proposition, whichever you look at it. My view, if I were the Minister of Health, one of the first things I would do, you have to get international help. Yeah. God forbid if we should have a major epidemic. You stop to think about it?
Wow. I don't even want to contemplate it.
So, first things first, I say we should treat this as a national emergency. So one of the ways is, one, they have some very huge hospital ships all, you know.
Yes.
Why not negotiate to have one of these hospital ships
sail into our harbor?
Sail into our harbor, even for a 6-month period.
Wow. Nobody's thinking along those lines.
Number one.
Yes.
Number two, the Chinese are supposed to be building a children's hospital,
Yeah.
same place on the Cornwall Regional site.
Sorry.
Why not go back to the Chinese?
Yeah.
Because them good enough. Overnight
Yes.
they can build something.
Oh, God.
Why not go back to China and say, look, we have a national crisis.
Yes.
Forget giving us this children's hospital per se.
Yes.
Why not just build us one nice
Modern
big hospital,
facility.
including
In the children
the
part
children
of it.
part, right?
Now, on TV, they give you a 5. May I give you a 5 and could I give you a 10 for that?
Yes.
Eh? Why aren't they listening to these arguments? You see what I'm
know.
talking about? Common
And
sense.
it's not rocket science.
Common sense government and common sense governance. The greatest consultant that government have is not the ones that they pay for. It's the people.
Yes.
It's the people. If they listen to the people, if they get free advice from the people, they can sift through and find things to truly benefit the nation.
Yeah.
And I have to be tearing the little hair out of my head and wondering why it is that so much stupidity is so prevalent in governance, whether you are PNP, JLP, NDM or whatever. Why is it that we do stupid so much?
No, but it goes back again to politics, and it also goes back to political corruption.
Goodness gracious.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars
Down the drain.
have been spent up there so far.
Nothing to show.
Go for the hospital. There's nothing to show.
Nothing to show.
Nothing to show.
Nothing to show. Nothing to show.
A certain gentleman who was up there, who was in charge of the hospital operations, was quietly removed, and they brought in this guy Green from
From
KPA.
Kingston. Yeah.
But why is it that the minister has not publicly stated that one of the reasons why the man was dismissed is that there was evidence there to indicate that there were acts of corruption? It
My
goes
goodness.
back to what you were saying a while ago, that the ordinary people go up there and say, I know so we should have do this thing yourself. This is the problem. But you have a man out there who you want to get the contract,
Yeah.
who don't know here from
Bullfoot.
Bullfoot. But you pull him in
Yes.
and make him get the contract. While it's a little man out there who could do it for 10 times less and do it right.
Yes.
You
Cannot
see
get
what
the
I'm
work. Cannot get the work.
You see what me I go?
Merit.
That's what's happening.
Merit is not a part of our society. This business, sometimes I mention it, that I'd love to see a government of meritocracy.
Very important. I'll never forget many years ago, that time PJ Patterson was Prime Minister, somewhere in St. Thomas. And they were going to be building a bridge across a fording that was always creating a problem whenever they were heavy rainfall. And all these big experts came and was telling the Prime Minister, oh, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what's going to happen. And there was this little old man who came up and said, Mr. Prime Minister, don't listen to them, sir. Me born and grow here, and me know where the water run when rainfall.
Yes.
So if you not build to accommodate the natural flow, blah, 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 you're going to still have the problem. And even PJ himself at the time dismissed the man.
Yes.
You know, so after they went building something,
He was red.
He was red.
He was red.
Because the little old man was
Tried
right.
to advise them.
But the
And they
man
wouldn't listen
understood.
to him.
So we have these so-called technocrats.
Yes. Very expensive
Yes.
too.
And they are part of the problem in this country.
The consultancy, the expense.
And that is part of the problem
Yeah.
at Cornwall Regional Hospital.
Yeah, the expense of consultants
Yes.
and all of these things, but they're leading us down the
It's right,
slippery
literally.
path to somewhere resembling
Yes,
Hades.
yes.
And I tell you, as we've been talking about Cornwall Regional at length, let's touch a little bit because time is against us, and I am so sorry sometimes that when we get together to talk, we do not have the luxury of time to really delve into some of these things. Tourism. What is happening to tourism? I mean, tourism promises so much and delivers so little for the small man on the ground. What is happening?
What is happening, Warren, is that globalization is going to wipe out the small man where tourism is. And I'll tell you how. We now have a situation in which, let's take the cruise ships, for example.
Yeah.
The cruise ships want to be in a position where when the cruise ship lands here, when the tourist comes off the cruise ship, the vehicles that take them to whichever point they want to go must be owned
By the cruise ship.
by the cruise ship. The attraction that the tourists are taken to are also to be owned by the cruise ship. This is the ultimate goal of things, right? Now, our political directorate, because we are so weak and we can't stand up to certain people, we genuflect. Some people have to make a lot of noise because one of the things, there was a certain cruise ship operator that wanted to purchase Duns River Falls. And there were those of us who had to say, no way would I prepare people to go lie down on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because Duns River Falls is one of Jamaica's greatest natural assets.
And national
It's like
treasure.
Niagara Falls, it's like the Taj Mahal.
Yes, yes.
How you going to give that to a private entity? Which means that when you go there, we can't go in there anymore. Unless we are tourists.
Lock us out.
The local transport operators will tell you that eventually they are being squeezed out. Again, it was Michael Manley
Yeah.
who brought about Juta, remember? Because of the fact that the ordinary man was not being able to benefit
From tourism
transporting
and transporting
The
tourists.
bigger players in the industry right now want to take over everything. So that is part of the problem. So you don't have a level playing field. And everything is gradually being taken and sucked in by these big multinational corporations. The second thing is that, and think about it very seriously, and this is why Bartlett, I'm sorry to say, the Minister of Tourism, it may well turn out that in the long haul, when history will have been written many, many years from now,
Yeah.
hopefully by those who would have been sufficiently educated
Yeah.
into the real
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
that we were sold out.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, several World Bank studies have shown that only about 5% of tourism earnings come back to Jamaica.
Yeah.
The all-inclusive. Everything is done up north or elsewhere. The bookings,
Yeah.
people pay for their tours up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
If they're going to have a wedding here, then pay for the wedding up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody will come here.
How are we going to benefit under those circumstances?
They have us by the balls. But if we are strong enough, like our Michael Manley was strong enough
Yes.
and he paid the price,
Yeah.
right? We need to reach a point where, first of all, it cannot be done by one single Caribbean nation.
Yeah.
This is where CARICOM should have come in.
Yeah.
Because if all the islands in the Caribbean unite and say, no, we want a bigger share of the pie,
Yeah. It would have to be done.
it would have to be done.
All right.
But they know how no well sugar. We don't reach the stage where they can start but to move. So they still have to come where you have the sun and beach.
Let us harken back then to the vision. You know, and I just hate that they have to play politics. But it's inevitable. Harken back to the great vision of Norman Manley, who said federation. Wouldn't that have been benefiting us tremendously now if we were one Caribbean nation?
the most powerful countries in the world are federations.
All right.
A lot of us don't realize that the United States of America is a federation.
Federation, of course.
It is United States
of America.
Well, we had the European Union.
Yeah.
The British foolishly, and I think
and they're regretting it.
Right.
Right away.
You still have the European
Yeah,
Union.
of course, intact.
The Russia was a combination of states.
Yeah.
Again, federalism.
And they do not want Africa to unite.
They have fought
and
against
coincidentally, they do not want the Caribbean to unite.
Exactly, because that's where the power lies.
So hence, you see, the maintenance of the status quo is a part of their modus operandi and their agenda, fulfilled in 2018 and causing us nothing but trouble.
Norman Manley was a great visionary, and when he envisioned the West Indies Federation, if we had stuck to that, we would be better off today. Let me tell you.
Let me ask you, as a bright, I don't even want you to mention that just yet. As a very bright man, I look up to you, very learned indeed. I want to ask you something. Because Jamaicans, you need to listen and benefit from this. No matter cock your ears and believe, say, well, boy, this is not for me or whatever. Listen, think, and learn. This is not about me. This is not about the governor, Lloyd B Smith. It's about information. And if our information is not correct, check it out for yourself. Just to a little bit. What do you think would have been happening? What do you think would have happened had Norman Manley been our first Prime Minister?
We would have still moved towards a united Caribbean of states, and that would have enabled us to have one big market share, because as it stands now, one of the reasons why most of the islands in the Caribbean are yet to achieve a real sustainable level of economic development is that they don't have sufficient market share. And they are not able in their little individual ways to produce enough. You follow me?
Yes, of course.
And then to have the surplus, because it's your surplus that you export.
Yes, of course.
The only thing that we are able to offer the world individually is tourism. And of course we have the backside, but because we don't have the technology
to develop it
and to process it, and no theory.
But the funny thing about it is tourism. Even the tourists are coming now and become business people in the very same industry where they came recently to vacation.
Yes.
Because they see it as so much opportunities, and mostly a lot of hotels. We don't have any prominent hotels in Jamaica owned by black people.
No.
We do not own the cruise ships. We do not own the planes.
No.
We do not own much of anything, and the little attractions that are here that are owned by some, it's a fight, tooth and nail. Some of them might as well not be owned by the people because the amount of money that they have to pay back to ensure that they get visitors to come and visit these places, which is another very corrupt practice. Instead of the visitor coming to Jamaica and being able to go here and there and experience things, there's a very direct, corrupt system put in place right now to direct tourist traffic only in certain places.
Absolutely.
If you do not pay, there is no play.
There's a particular lady I know who has a very large piece of real estate in Montego Bay, and she had a very serious problem because no tourists were coming to her location. I won't call her name, but you might have an idea who it is. And why weren't any tourists coming to her location? Because she wasn't prepared to pay. Right? And this is how the thing runs. Now, what is happening now? These same people, they are soon going to get shafted because the bigger players
are going to swallow them.
Because the bigger players are saying, we don't want just piece of the cake. We want all of the cake. So we must control ground transportation. We must control shopping. We must control attractions. You see where I'm going?
Yeah. So pretty
So what is
soon,
going to be left for the ordinary little entrepreneur?
out of $10 that is spent, they don't even want us to get $1.
No. And then, as I said, you want to reach a stage where I am in New York, I want to spend a week in Jamaica. I can pay for because you can go online now
Yes.
and see all the attractions. You can decide say you want to go Duns River. You can decide say you want to go snorkeling. Right? You pay for all of that
Up there.
up there.
Not $1.
And you come here and you have the whale of a time.
Yes.
Plenty of you tell them say you can't tip
Yes.
the workers.
Yes.
So your workers still end up getting a little 5,000, 4,000 a week. You see where I'm going?
Where does the tourism minister come in all of this? And whether I'm a JLP, PNP, or whatever kind of P, what is the responsibility and what does he or she need to do? Is he presently? But what can be done to deal with the situation? Because it needs to be rectified.
It's a very difficult one because if you go back into the history of tourism in Jamaica, you will recall how did tourism start? And our listeners need to know this
Yes.
thing. Our tourism started by virtue of the fact that when the banana boats came to pick up the bananas, primarily it was Portland and St. Mary, and
Yeah.
the ships, when they were coming, were empty.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes.
So the idea was, why not bring people?
To pay for the fuel and all of that kind of stuff.
So
and
that's
make
how-
some money.
That was how our tourism started, you know. Right? And then now, during the World Wars, people had to find some way to go to escape from, you know,
War and the conditions
lack
that
of
prevail.
food.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of them had to be eating horse meat and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Wow.
So that is how tourism started out. And so what has happened? At the very outset, therefore, it was controlled by those very same persons who had the banana
Yeah.
plantations, like your Delisa.
Yes. Well, see, tremendously. And guess what happened? Unfortunately, we've come to another end of our program. It looked like there's going to be a part 3 and 4.
I
don't
am
know.
willing to come back.
Keep troubling you.
I
Ladies
am
and
willing
gentlemen,
to come
I
back
know.
because this is education.
Yeah, of course, we need to explore these things.
Yeah, we need to.
It has been a fantastic time talking to you again, Mr. Lloyd B Smith, the governor of Montego Bay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm so sorry that we had to end abruptly, but this is not an end. There'll be a continuation. Walk good. This has been COPE, Community's Own and Personal Elevation, coming to you from the Hard Rock Cafe. One love.